Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the brand new SSR Water Hunter, Meri Laine. She's a water stacker, and she's not just another water unit. The big reason she matters is that she helps push water teams into the current scaling direction the game is leaning toward, and that's defense penetration and overload value in longer fights. So first, how do you get her? Meri Laine is obtainable through a rate-up draw, and her exclusive weapon can be obtained through crafting or events. So you're pulling for the hunter directly, while the weapon is something you can plan around with resources and event timing. Now, what does Meri Laine actually do? Her main job is to act as a water stacker who supports a water core by building pressure and enabling stronger windows over time. In practice, this means she performs best when you're not trying to force her into a pure main DPS role. You can do damage with her, but most of her value comes from enabling your water lineup to perform more consistently, especially in harder content where you need repeatable clears. One of the most important long-term points is her Advancement 4. At Advancement 4, you gain 5% defense penetration per water ally, and it applies to all water team members. That means the more water allies you run, the more team penetration you stack, and penetration is one of the best ways to scale damage into high defense enemies. One important note: this applies to water team members, so Sung Jinwoo isn't included in that specific benefit. But for a full water hunter lineup, this is huge. So where does Meri shine the most? She's especially valuable in content where bosses have high defense and fights last long enough for overload and stacking value to matter. That includes endgame boss-focused modes and anything where you're pushing consistent performance rather than one lucky run. Now let's talk about the build, because this is where people can easily lose a lot of value. Meri does not naturally come with free crit rate baked into her kit, so if you ignore crit stats, her personal output can feel inconsistent. Your goal is to make her damage and uptime feel stable. After that, you can adjust based on your content. If you're fighting high defense bosses, penetration becomes more important, because penetration builds still perform extremely well when bosses have very high defense values. If you're missing penetration, you can still run consistent sets and rely on stable rotations, but penetration is a strong scaling path. Now cores. Here's a clean setup that was recommended in the guides I reviewed. Top core, ferocious. This one is very important. Middle core, ideally nameless, so you get that HP-based shield consistently. Bottom core, flexible. If you're using a blessing-style setup and you want more team sustain, you can run ferocious again for extra healing value. If you don't have MP issues, you can simply use the best core you currently have available for your account. Now artifacts, and this is the part that changes depending on what you're doing. If we're talking about Guild Boss, the clear message from testing is that 8-piece infamy performs the best for her from a stat and performance perspective. So if your goal is Guild Boss damage and you want the current meta direction, 8-piece infamy is the main setup to keep in mind. For general content outside of Guild Boss, it becomes more situational. There are support and hybrid approaches that work, and the reason is simple. You don't always need Meri to be the main damage dealer. Many times you want her to enable the team and keep rotations smooth. If you need a simple rule, for Guild Boss, go 8-piece infamy. For other modes, you can go more support or hybrid depending on what your team needs, your total power requirements, and your gear quality. There's also an important point about high defense bosses. In some content, bosses can have extremely high defense values, similar to other high-end bosses in the game. And in those situations, penetration-focused builds still work well. If you can reach around 40 to 50% penetration, that's a strong target range for scaling. And if you cannot, you can still run consistent sets like 4-piece infamy or 4-piece curse, and your performance will still be fine as long as your rotation is clean. Now, the most important question: should you summon or skip? If you're building water teams seriously, Meri Laine is a summon. She brings water stacking value, she supports the current penetration scaling direction through her Advancement 4 synergy, and she helps water teams perform better in harder modes, especially when you're pushing long fights and high defense bosses. If you're not investing into water at all, then she becomes more optional. She's still strong, but your priority depends on what element you're committing to right now. The big value of Meri is when you're actually playing water lineups and you want them to feel complete and consistent. So the final takeaway is this: Meri Laine is best used as a water stacker who enables the team, not as a forced solo carry. Build her with attack and crit consistency, use the recommended core setup for stability, and for Guild Boss specifically, 8-piece infamy is the main meta direction right now. Keep your rotation clean, skill 1 into core attack, and she'll perform exactly the role water teams needed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.